Throughout this leadership course, we've been discussing the DNA of our church and the highest value that we hold, which is honor. In the first session, we talked about how we honor God through our time, our actions, efforts, obedience, gratitude, and our wealth. In the second session, we talked about honoring God by honoring one another as His children, by appreciating, listening, showing grace, and encouraging one another. Today, I want to talk about how God has called us to not only honor each other as fellow believers, but He's also called us to honor those that are not yet His children. And we must recognize that everyone was created in God's image and that He desires to adopt them into His family. There are many people in our world, in our country, and even in our community who are not yet part of God's family, yet God has called us to honor them. In fact, 1 Peter 2:17 instructs us, honor all people. This can be challenging, as not everyone behaves honorably. This raises a difficult question. How do we honor someone who's a sinner? How do we show respect to those who think and believe and live differently than we do? It's a challenge we face in our society today, but it's one that God has called us as believers to embrace. In Colossians 4:5-6, Paul emphasizes that we should live wisely among those who are not believers and make the most of every opportunity. Let your conversation be gracious and attractive so that you will have the right response for everyone. Paul encourages us to make the best use of our time and to let our speech be gracious, seasoned with salt, so that we will know how to respond to each person. How we engage with those outside the faith is crucial. Our words and actions can reflect the love of Christ in a profound way. Jesus set a powerful example of this in the story of Zacchaeus. As Jesus is entering into Jericho, he encounters Zacchaeus, a chief tax collector who was rich, but he was also notorious for being dishonest. And despite Zacchaeus' reputation, Jesus saw him differently than other people. When he saw Zacchaeus up on top of that sycamore tree, he looked at him and he called him by name. And he said, Zacchaeus, come down from there. I must stay in your house today. Jesus chose to honor a man who was despised by society. The crowd grumbled and shocked that Jesus would even associate with such a sinner. Yet in that moment, Jesus demonstrated that He saw beyond Zacchaeus' flaws and failures. He sees potential and worth in those who are not necessarily living an honorable life. Zacchaeus' response to Jesus and the honor that Jesus showed him was a transformed life. He pledged to give half of his wealth to the poor and to repay anyone who had cheated him. And Jesus declared that salvation had come to his home, affirming that Jesus came to seek and to save the lost. This story illustrates a profound truth. Jesus had the ability to see potential where others only saw sin. He treated Zacchaeus not as a notorious sinner, but as someone worthy of love and respect. When we encounter people, especially those who may not share our beliefs or may live differently than we do, we are called to look beyond their actions and see their potential. This perspective can change the way that we interact with others, allowing us to honor them as fellow creations of God made in His image. In doing so, we not only reflect the heart of Jesus, but we also open the door for transformation in their lives. By honoring others, we participate in God's work of seeking and saving the lost, showing that everyone has the capacity for change and for redemption.